Bidi, Part 1, Vacation, July 20th to 25th, 2022. July 21st, 2022. Welcome everyone to Eliza Benol's YouTube channel. Eliza. Yes, we are already live. Yes, we're live. Alright, so we're going to have Bidi in a few minutes. Let's start, if you don't mind, by seeing if there are any questions among the listeners present here. Brother. I have a question. Bidi. We are listening to you. Brother. You were with us a year ago at the previous seminar. Bidi. Exactly. Brother. I wanted to know what view you had on humanity as it is today in terms of the situation compared to a year ago. Bidi. Compared to a year ago, and compared to when I was in a body, I don't see any difference. The man continues to go about his business, takes care of his concerns, but is still not interested in what he is. Of course, seen from the person, it could be called an involution, but from the point of view of the absolute, absolutely nothing has changed. You continue to turn to your little self, to your little business, to your little bed, rather than inscribing yourself in the center of the heart, that is to say, in life. In short, we can say that humanity today is still as astralized as it was then. In fact, nothing has ever changed, except technical frills, modern means. The human person is always the same, always centered on his belly, on his possessions, on his little life, and absolutely not interested in the truth. Only a small percentage of you, and not just for a year, but for many years, have been able to find yourselves and allow the overall level of suffering to be alleviated in some way, because humanity is the suffering. And until you are turned away from suffering, your own or that of others, how do you want to be free? You give more weight to suffering than to truth. You are always looking globally for solutions for happiness, whereas the only happiness that will never pass is that of the truth, which has never changed since the world began. Whatever the circumstances, whether it be those you have called the Middle Ages, or ancient times, or modern times, the situation is exactly the same. It is only appearances that have changed, the search for comfort, the search for fulfillment, the search for profit wherever it is, that all prevents you from living the truth. And as the commander certainly told you, and as you certainly see, there is more than urgency to live the real, to live what you are, to get out of your conditioning, to get out of your little pleasures, to get out of your character, and finally let be what is, whatever the suffering, whatever the appearances, whatever the images, that this world gives you to see. Some of you are looking in dreams, in illusory projections, for happiness. Some of you speak of a future, which of course will only be better, not seeing how misguided humanity is in the search for what is false. This will become more and more obvious, but also more and more critical. The difference compared to a year ago, there is none. The difference compared to before, there is none, except, as I said, the few beings who found themselves. But as you know, as I have always firmly and definitively professed and said, this world is definitely a stage, it is definitely Maya, the same as your body and your life. And, for the most part, you are still identified with that. The theater stage is what it is, there is a script that was written from beginning to end of the illusion. But from beginning to end of the illusion, you are subject to it because, quite simply, you believe in it. The circumstances of the theater scene, regardless of appearances, as long as there are no significant events in your life, or in all of humanity, nothing will change. But that too is written. So I have neither hope nor despair. I simply note that the film continues to unfold, that the actors are still persuaded to be actors, that the spectators are still persuaded to be spectators, and that neither the actor nor the spectator has seen and lived that the theater had no real existence. The veils of illusion are still quite present despite, indeed, perhaps a greater facility for true introspection, a greater capacity perhaps on the theater stage to see the theater, but also to see the illusion of the theater. Of course, all of humanity is afraid of death, afraid of a virus that does not exist, afraid of a lack somewhere. Fear cannot lead you to freedom. Freedom is lightness, it knows no fear. Fear is viscerally inscribed in the form, in this bag of meat that you occupy. Globally, humanity is still identified with the fact of being a bag of meat, without counting all the spiritual gurus who take you on drifting paths, on side roads, by dangling you an extraordinary future of light. This is a lie. The only real is in you, everything else passes away, everything else is false. Did I answer your question? Brother. Yes. Bidi. Thanks. Silence. Could I have a sip of my chai? Eliza. Marie-France tells me to put on the subtitles. Listen, Marie-France, I tried, but I'm not an expert and I don't have anyone here right now. I put them on, but it didn't come out. So I'm sorry this time. I only read your message a while ago, otherwise I could have done it, maybe get someone to come and do it to me. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to do that, so I'm sorry. Anyway. Bidi shouts very loudly. You are speaking to a deaf person with your voice. Do you think she'll hear you or did you write it? Eliza. No, but I think she can hear you, I think she can hear you. Bidi. Oh, I don't think so. Eliza. I'm sorry then, but I didn't know how to do that, I'm sorry. Bidi. It does not matter, she will read what is necessary. Eliza. If you have any questions, the others there, you can put them here. Bidi. I would like to specify in relation to what I said, now on an individual basis, as long as you believe you have to make an effort to be in the real, you are mistaken. The real will never be an effort, it is a capitulation of all will to be anything other than what you are, here, in this moment, with the first and last name that were given to you as soon as you appeared on the surface of this world. Everything else distances you from yourselves, distances you from life, distances you from the truth. There is no other solution than to be here, present. Everything else is just nonsense, outright lies, scams of the conscience, of the mind. It's going to be time to notice it, it's going to be time to make it aware, it's going to be time to let go of everything, your slightest pretensions at any level whatsoever, and to let what is being be. Everything else is just distraction. I'm not going to go back over all that I was able to tell you since I arrived among you for 10 years now, whether it's the refutation, whether it's the affirmation that you are not this body but you are in this body, it makes a big difference. But out of the habit of form, you are identified with what is false. You are carried away both by habit, both by memories, both by projections, and you are not available to be here, present. Many years ago, I believe, the guardians of dreams, the cetaceans, gave you source codes, delivered messages to you allowing you to remember who you are from all eternity, not who you were yesterday, not who you were in a hypothetical other life or other world, but to remember who you have always been. Accept that you were never born, accept that you are not concerned with death, and you will remember who you are. You will no longer be attached to a body, to your history, to your memory, and you will finally taste true happiness. All the happiness offered by this world, from east to west, from north to south, are only vanities, satisfactions of the ego to reassure you and avoid fear. Face your fears, you are none of those fears. The fears are secreted by the form, by the sack of meat, and you believe that they are yours. Fear is a chemical signal, you have nothing to do with chemistry, your body, yes, what you are, no. You are beyond stupid to have 1, 2, or 12 strands of DNA. These are still fantasies to make you dream, but if you dream, you will soon be in the most terrible nightmare, And it will do you the greatest good, because at last you will realize that you are beyond any dream, beyond any nightmare and any future as well as any past. There is no time, there is infinite space, the Brahman, and beyond the space which is infinite, there is what you are, that is to say the Para-Brahman. It's been explained long and wide and sideways, but the problem is that many of you follow what I say or what has been written of me, gargle it with words, with concepts, with ideas, but are not in happiness. True and truthful happiness does not depend on the circumstances of your age, your husband or your wife or your wallet. Be lucid with yourselves. Look at yourself clearly, not to find fault, but to see what you are beyond all appearance, and you can only see it inside of you and not on the outside at all. There is certainly, but as always, it is no different from a few years ago, a total confusion, a total inversion of the truth. There is nothing sacred in humanity, there are only simulacra, there are only masquerades, there is only falsehood, fakery, and yet it is inside that you seek the real. Come on, another question. Eliza. How the Para-Brahman? Bidi. What? Eliza. How could the Para-Brahman let himself be imprisoned in this bag of meat? Bidi. But you were never imprisoned. It is still an idea, a belief. How could the Para-Brahman be locked up? You try to paste the circumstances of your life and insert the Para-Brahman into that illusion. Do not mix the Para-Brahman with notions of confinement. You didn't understand anything, the world was never born, the world is an illusion from Alpha to Omega. It's a dream. Wake up. 10 years ago I spoke to you about the different consciousnesses, and in particular about Turiya, which is the natural state, which is the state of dreamless sleep. There is perfection. There is no world or body interfering with you, you are unaware of the world, you are unaware of yourself, you are pure bliss. This is your natural state. Do not look for how or why, of any confinement whatsoever. This will in no way bring you closer to happiness, to the real. Stop by procrastinating, turn within, it's as simple as that. Silence. The silence between the words feels good. I remind you that in my story as a human being, very young, my guru said to me, "You are not this body." A mantra that I repeated to myself for 3 years without caring about anything else, except my ordinary life. It took me 3 years. Some of you have been reading me, listening to me, for how many years? Some, 10 years, others for 30 years. What does it mean? Does that mean that the natural state is something arduous, complicated? No, it means that you seek where there is nothing to seek. You can only be what you are in the moment you are. Accept that and you are free. But as soon as there is a search in your head, an idea of improvement, an idea of a future, you are cooked. It's that simple. Silence. Eliza, some people ask in the chat if you're angry. Bidi. Oh no, I'm never mad. Eliza. If you're upset and in a bad mood. Laughs. Bidi. I'm never in a bad mood. I follow the ball in a bowling game, and the more stubborn the pins, the faster the ball goes and its strength increases. But don't interpret the power of my voice or the tone as anger or being angry. It is still a human reasoning linked to appearances. Close your eyes, stay silent, don't judge anything, let yourself cross and penetrate without stopping anything, and you will see what happens. Eliza, Spanish people are asking why I don't translate, so I'm going to tell them no. Bidi. Because the translators will translate very quickly, and in the listeners we don't have a Spanish audience, and we only have French or Belgians or Swiss, in any case, only French language. Eliza. Eliza is resting. Bidi. Exactly. Eliza translated into Spanish. Bidi. I already said at the beginning of my intervention that you should not stop at the meaning of words. Silence. Brother. I have a question, Bidi. Bidi. We are listening to you. Brother. I live in my character the fear of affirming what I am, and I ask myself the question of this fear, why it is there, and how to transcend this fear of affirming what I am deeply. Bidi. So, I heard, but I would like you to rephrase your question. You spoke well in this character, what is it? A fear? Brother. Absolutely. Bidi. But the fear belongs to the character. Brother. Absolutely. Bidi. So you still think that the character can eliminate fear in order to experience grace or perfection, that's what you're expressing. Brother. Absolutely. Bidi. Well now, you have to get out of your head the idea that you are a character, the problem is there. You are not that character who sucks. Remember, it is never the person who is freed, but you who are freed from the person. So how can you imagine the character being, eventually, one day, ready to experience grace? Grace is without anyone and especially without you. This is where there is a problem of comprehension. Disidentify yourself from everything that is not the present moment, this present moment is without you. So just asking the question in this way reveals somewhere, and you'll tell me if you agree, that the character thinks that by eliminating this fear, he will be free, but it can't be like that, because as long as you formulate that, you are still identified with this character. Is not it? Brother. Absolutely. Bidi. So. Brother. Unless it's benevolence towards this character. Bidi. What? Brother. Unless it is due to benevolence towards this character who has this fear. Bidi. Neither benevolence nor fear. Simply state that nothing about this character is real and nothing about this character is about you. The here and now, as the archangel said years ago, hic et nunc, here and now, is not linked to the person. Here and now is more linked to the observer, the spectator if you prefer. But speaking that way, there's no denying that you identify with the character and that you think that by removing fear, fears or whatever from that character will experience grace. It's impossible. You will only experience grace, and the natural state when you are no longer in any way identified with the personage that you precisely are. The truth has nothing to do with the character. The character is a body of dreams, a body of illusion. One can even call it a body of suffering because it is the bearer of memories, because it is the bearer of action-reaction, because it is bearer of beliefs, of dreams within the dream. But you must already fundamentally accept that you are nothing of what you perceive, that you are nothing of what you live, and at that moment you will be available. And when I say you, I'm not addressing the character who is listening, I'm addressing the one who is silently inside you, what you are. So there is a problem of positioning, and I reassure you this problem concerns a lot of brothers and sisters who still believe that their character, in one way or another, will bring them the real. Of course, the character can touch and experience the I am or the self, but the I am or the self is not the real. Everything that is subject to time belongs to the dream, it is an error in logic and an error in positioning. Look at your character, no need to mistreat him, look at him really, with detachment, observe him, affirm that he has nothing real, that all your gesticulations, that all the elements of your life belong to the dream with no exceptions. At that time you will be available. As long as you have not rejected, far from you, the idea of being this entity, of being this body of suffering, as long as you think that you must improve yourself, you are mistaken, you are moving away from reality. The real has always been here and now. It doesn't care about time, it doesn't care about your identity, it doesn't care what you think, it doesn't care what you believe. Listen to the silence within you and not the person's whining. You need the firm conviction, the most absolute, that you have nothing to do with this body which appeared one day and which will one day disappear. It doesn't mean running away from your life, it just means accepting what I just said, affirm it and you will live it. But as long as you believe you have to rely on something illusory to find the real, it's simple, you go around in circles. As long as you rely on an outside authority, or what you might consider an outside authority, whether it be in a book, in a religion, in a vision, in a so-called informed opinion, you cannot be free and even less autonomous. You have given your power to something other than the real. Silence. Eliza. A sister says, "Hello everyone, as long as there are questions, there is always identification with the dream." Bidi. What? Eliza. As long as there are questions, there is always identification with the dream. We identify with the dream as long as there are questions. Bidi. Is it a statement? Eliza. No, that's what she said as a comment. Bidi. The questions are no more important than the answers. What is important is the connection, the resonance, even I should say, and what happens beyond the words, beyond intellectual understanding. What is happening that is important cannot be at the conscious level. The word of the Jnani is free, it is not conditioned by anything, and it is in this non-conditioning, in this non-conceptualization that you have the greatest chance of meeting yourselves. The question is an alibi. The answer is also an alibi, it's just support. Nothing more. Eliza. Do we have any questions from the audience? Brother. I have a Bidi question. Bidi. We are listening to you. Brother. I feel like I've known you forever and that makes me wonder. Why this impression? Bidi. Why this impression of recognizing, of always knowing the real? The speech? What are you talking about? Brother. It is your presence. Bidi. It's normal, my presence is nothing other than you. I remind you that in this satsang conversation with the truth, if you let yourself be crossed, of course you recognize yourself, since there is neither you nor me. So there is an evidence that is emerging, there is a breaking of the veils, of the dams, that's remembering who you are. To see that beyond the resonance, as I said, which would go from one point to another, in fact you discover the immutability of what has always been there. Those moments, as I said, by the way being embodied, that my words couldn't fail. It's not related to the quality of my speech, but where does this speech come from? It does not come from my heart, it is already present in yours, where there is precisely no one left. Of course there must be, and this is the goal, a feeling of gratitude that puts an end to forgetting, and the more easily you immerse yourself, without questioning, in what happens beyond of any idea or thought, the closer you come to yourself, to this silent observer that you are. These interviews allow you to get closer to yourselves, hence, as you say, this familiar aspect somewhere. It is an encounter with yourself. It would take a little tea to soften the voice. Thanks a lot. How? I was given something to wear. Is it for the voice? And where do we put it? There is a hole. We are looking for the hole. Otherwise I can swallow it if you prefer. Thanks. Eliza gave him throat and or cough spray. Bidi. Yes, the voice is clearer. Silence. And among the video listeners? Eliza. Are there any questions among the listeners watching the video? Bidi. In any case, today more than ever, I really would like one thing for you to retain deep inside you, that the truth is so simple that there is no place for any path whatsoever. As long as you think you're on your way, you're actually beating around the bush. You just go around in circles. Stillness and silence are far more important things for you to remember than any speech, or any ranting, or any thought. Remember that the key will always be you, remember that the key cannot be anywhere but here and now, and ultimately there never was a key and never was a way. The sentence of saying, accept what is the only sentence that can allow you to silence the character. It is never the character who discovers the real, but the real which puts an end to the character. It's not the same thing at all. Silence. So either I put everyone to sleep or they all fled. Eliza. Come on, ask questions. A brother. In fact, there is no door that can give access to the real. Bidi. Exactly. Brother. At some point, the real emerges naturally. Bidi. As soon as you let go of any claim to anything, as soon as you are available to yourself, here and now, that's right. Everything else is just ramblings. I repeat it, the real has always been there, you have always been there. I even said while being embodied, the universes appeared, the worlds unfolded, the worlds will disappear, the universes will disappear, and you will always be there, identical and unchanged. It's not a fancy idea or a concept, it's the reality of the Parabrahman's experience. There is no other reality. The only source of happiness that never passes away is there. And yet happiness is a weak word. Silence. Eliza. A question that I will translate. Bidi. We listen. Eliza. Why don't we leave this game once and for all? This character. Bidi. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Eliza. Why don't we leave this game once and for all? We're not that character, but it ends up being very dense, even though we're not that character. Why do we continue to be here? Bidi. Why do we continue? But it's horribly simple. You believe in this game, you believe in this character, you believe in the worlds, you believe in the worlds of form, therefore you believe in the dream. And it is the same when you think you are dying, you create another world, where there are supposedly beings of light, members of your family who tell you that you have to come back. So on this side of the veil, as on the other side of the veil, you are still in illusion. You believe, how do you say? As hard as iron that you are real. That's why you're still here. Your conviction must be sincere and integral. You are nothing of this body, you are nothing of your life, you are nothing of this person, but you are inside. So whether we call this body a bag of meat or a sacred temple, it doesn't change anything. They are still words. As long as you have not seen, through experience, which is the only way to understand it, that all this does not exist, you continue to reincarnate. When you leave this world, as I said, you meet so-called beings of light, who tell you nonsense, who prevent you from entering your light, and from crossing your light, you are still in a projection. It has no end. How do you want what never began to ever end? The dream is what it is, in the world of form, as in what could be called the astral world. You have to realize somewhere, genuinely, that there was never anyone. You must realize that what you are is not dependent on any time, any form, any world, and any dimension. You have to go somewhere in the total confusion of the character, somewhere in the drama of the character, to finally find yourself. Until you have exhausted all the illusory and false paths somewhere, you are not ready for the real. When you're tired of suffering, when you're tired of going back and forth in every sense of the word, until you see your immutability, you can't remember who you are. One could say that humanity today is a dream within the dream, within the dream, within the dream, within the dream of the first dream. There are indeed several layers of dreams and illusions. Until you cast away all dreams, you cannot be free. Anyway, if you consider that you are not free, it is simply that somewhere you still believe in your character. I'm sorry to say this, but there is no other alternative. Eliza. I have a question. Bidi. We listen. Eliza. My head is in silence for me. It is a way of meditating. But despite this, I sometimes see fear in my heart, and it is enough to observe the feeling for it to disappear. Bidi. I find it very difficult to understand this expression of fear in the heart. Fear grips you in the stomach, fear grabs you by the throat. It is not fear that affects the heart, it is the retraction of the heart, the non-spontaneity, the non-immediacy. Of course, there are emotions that can trigger heart organ problems. We all know that. But the silence you talk about in your head, we don't care. Silence must be in the heart. You can make all the silences in your head that you want, it won't change anything. The silence you are told about is the silence of the observer or the witness. It's the silence that is there, in the middle of the chest, not in the head. Whether your head is in the hubbub, in confusion or in silence will not change anything. It is not the silence of thoughts. And perfect silence is that which is no longer identified with anything in the world of form. He doesn't reject the form, but he saw the scam. If silence is in the heart, then love is there. Because in the silence, there is the nothing. Because in the silence there is the full. Everything is included in the silence, not only metaphorically. There could not be any music, even music of the spheres, if it could not be supported by silence. The silence of the heart or the peace of the heart is to rejoin immutability, at the center of what has been called the double torus of the heart, or of the ascending crown of the heart, where there is evidence, where you remember who you are. It has nothing to do with the head. Ultimately, the head is only an excrescence of the heart, a parasite of the heart. Silence. Eliza. I have other questions, whenever you want. Bidi. I want it. Eliza. Who decides to stop believing in this person? The person? Bidi laughs. Bidi. But you are stupid somewhere. Who's deciding? It's you, not the person. I said it and I repeat it. It is enough to affirm, as I did during my lifetime, for 3 years, I am not this body, I am not this person. Why look for noon at 2 o'clock? The decision is, of course, yours. Do you know a single person on this earth who was able to say, I am not that person? But you are in that person, where there is no one. Who is the master on board? Life, love, wisdom, the one who knows, the one who has always known, the one who was never born, who never died, the one who has always been present. Call him God, if you will. And of course the person cannot decide anything. Eliza. The person withdrew the question, I think she must have been scared. Sister. My heart is in silence and observes the thoughts that pass and disappear. I got my answer, that's why I removed the question. Eliza. Go dare. Other questions? A brother. Bidi, can we share the fire of the Sacred Heart with you? Bidi. Ah, but with great joy. Just stay still, preferably close your eyes. Bidi gets into a split position. Silence. Because there is no other way possible. Silence. Until the moment you live and realize that there was never a way. You never moved, you were always there. Silence. Stop or again. Bidi speaking to Eliza. Eliza. You have been on Earth. You saw that it was very real all the same. Bidi. What have I been through? Eliza. You lived on Earth and you saw that the game was real anyway. Bidi. Of course, he is very attractive. I never said the opposite. I have never rejected life. I remind you that I was not in a cave surrounded by students, I was in active life, I had children. I had a wife. I had worries like everyone else. So, where is the problem? Eliza. It's because it's difficult to get the character to accept the fact that he doesn't exist. Bidi. But you'll never get him to accept that. The way you put it proves that you didn't understand anything. Laughs. You confuse, you reverse everything. The character will never be able to accept it. That's why I'm telling you to repeat that you're not that person. You are not that body. You were never born. I never said the character was going to accept that. The character is precisely designed to adhere to the dream. Notice how you ask the question. It is the point of view of the person, of the character again. You have to put yourself in the head, in the heart and everywhere that the character can do nothing about it. He is there and he cannot be elsewhere. Eliza. But it is he who expresses himself. Bidi. Who? Eliza. The character. Bidi. But no, it's not him. Eliza. He keeps annoying. Bidi. So. Eliza. It's the monkey. Bidi. The monkey, the parrot, the baboon, the ego, call it what you want. Everything that has appeared is not true. Everything that happens and everything that happens is not true. Don't try to convince the monkey or the parrot, you won't succeed. Stop identifying with the monkey or the parrot, it's not the same thing. Eliza. I get it, that's it. A sister. Oh. Phew. Bidi says to Eliza. Your energy just changed. Go ahead, express it, do not hesitate. Eliza. Actually, the one who just ate lunch was not me. Bidi. Exactly. Laughs. Eliza. The one who is going to eat an ice cream later will be me. Bidi. No more. Laughs. You could almost hear the workings of thought. Silence. You're right when you say it wasn't you, it's not a joke, it's your body. Eliza. Question from a sister, how do you live from where you are? Bidi. I am everywhere and nowhere. Remember that I am dissolved in the Parabrahman, and what is expressed today is only a particular link, which I have called ultra-temporality, or if you prefer a particular process of walk-in as the English call it, which is not only an exchange of soul, nor an exchange of body, but an exchange of divine spark, which is the same. Today, I cannot be located anywhere, neither in a dimension, nor in a brotherhood, nor in an assembly of anything. Eliza. So you're not living? Bidi. I do not live? But it's you who aren't living, you talk nonsense, it's you who are dead, it's you who are in the world of death, not me. The world of form is a world of death. The world of what is born and what dies is not true, it is a nightmare world. In truth, there has never been a world, there is only life. Eliza or another sister. And things are going well with you? Bidi. Why would it go wrong? Not being subject to anything, not being limited by anything, being in the most total emptiness, in the state of primordial perfection, why do you want anything to happen, for good or for bad? I repeat, in the Parabrahman, nothing happens, nothing happens. Eliza. And in this state, can we experience it here? Bidi. But certainly not. You want both butter and butter's money, as they say. Truth is a total renunciation of illusion and dream. Eliza. Isn't that what we call agape? Bidi. Oh yes, it's agape. The version manifested through the person is called agape, this unconditional love, which makes no difference, like the sun which nourishes the assassin and the saint in the same way. It does not make particularism. It makes no difference. He is equal to himself. Silence. Brother. A question. Bidi. Bidi. We are listening to you. Brother. How can we not take ourselves seriously in this world? Bidi. Some would tell you to rediscover the spontaneity of childhood, the way of innocence, of simplicity. They are right. But look at what we call society, whether in the East or in the West. As soon as you are born, you are formatted, you are given a name, a first name, with which you identify. You are assigned a function, you are the son or daughter of. Then, you are educated, that is to say formatted according to social or moral rules, where there is always and systematically an authority above you. And, as the years go by, as we all see, everything becomes more and more serious. It is conditioning. It is a program that is perpetuated from generation to generation. The jnani has a childlike smile. He has a mischievous smile, not to deceive you, but because he smiles to see you looking for you when you are already there. As I said earlier, you beat around the bush. The real is not serious. He is simply relieved of the weight of all dreams, all beliefs, all hopes and all illusions. It is rather a state of lightness, whatever the state of the body, whatever the state of the consciousness or the mind. Peace and silence, which have been found, are of a lightness that no desire, no satisfaction of this world or of no world can give. Silence. Eliza. Question. In reality, nothing happens, eternally but bliss? Bidi. That's a question, is it? Eliza. Question. In reality, nothing happens, eternally but bliss? Yes, that's a question. Bidi. It is a beatitude which is not even aware of itself. You are in the state of perfection. You ignore all of the worlds. There is no longer the slightest trace of any dream, any illusion. Words are very weak to describe the real. But, indeed, these are the best qualifiers that we can find. Even if I prefer those of immutability, even if I prefer the words, nothing happens and nothing happens. There is no form. There is no projection. There is no radiation. There is only peace and love. This love and peace need not be radiated or projected. This is the moment when you also understand that you are all of the worlds, all of the dreams. This is the moment when you understand that there is no individuality. It is the moment when you live that there is no person. So the words of absolute, Parabrahman, a consciousness as prior to consciousness, are only weak qualifiers. But there is one obvious thing. It is that, whoever discovers it, can only affirm that it can only be that, the unique truth. There is no room for doubt. At that time, you actually remember who you were before the birth of the being, before the birth of the light, Before the appearance of consciousness and the worlds. You can't be wrong, you can't be deceived. There is immediate recognition. Of course, being in a form, we use a vocabulary, words, which come as close as possible. So, whether you name it here and now, instant present, eternal now, time zero, heart of the heart, presence and absence united, where there is no one, where nothing happens, these are essays that try to reflect the experience of the liberated. But the essential thing, whatever different qualifiers may be used, is that you are absolutely sure and certain that only this is true. Because precisely, remember, you remember, not just any world, not just any form. But you really remember what you are, who you are. There is no possible doubt. There is no questioning. Save the questions to find out what time your train leaves tomorrow or how much you will earn. Keep the questions necessary for life within the dream. There is no longer a researcher. There is nothing to look for. There is nothing to gain and nothing to lose. There is simply that which is there. You are that. Eliza. I have other questions. Bidi. What? Eliza. I have other questions, it looks like they are waking up. Eliza. A sister, she writes in Spanish, I will translate. Eliza. The mind is also part of the dream. Is the mind also part of the dream? Bidi. Sure. Everything that has a name, everything that has a shape, everything that appears and disappears, is part of the dream. The world in its entirety, creation in its entirety, belongs to the dream. The real will never be a dream. Eliza. Another question. Is the one who was known on earth as Bernard of Montreal with you or around? Bidi. I have the whole world by my side. There is no distance. There is no space. There is no time. There is no timeline. I believe that at some point with Abba, we took vehicles of light to go and visit people, to show that all clothing is only an envelope, a costume. And that, when you are free, you can borrow any costume in any weather, from any dream. It has no interest for us. It has an interest for the one who lives our meeting. But the one you named Bernard from Montreal, who of course was not part of any order. I remind you that all orders, even the Melchizedeks, are a sect, nothing more, nothing less. These are people who think they are individualized and have not solved the problem of individuality. Besides, who among the ancients, until very close times, could claim to know the Absolute and live the Absolute? None. Neither Sri Aurobindo, nor Brother K, nor all the others. Things are different now. There is no more distance between me and Bernard from Montreal, between me and Yildibarth or whoever you want. They're just costumes. There is nothing real. Eliza. Question. Is the identification with the individuality the greatest veil which made us believe in the separation, in the dream, or is it the very belief in the existence of this veil? Bidi. We can say that, as soon as you appeared within a form, there is the illusion. Of course, by the habit of taking forms, as is the case on earth, these are added beliefs because of the human inability to go beyond the world of predation, the world of confinement, as has been explained at length. But even in the dimensions that you called free, where the genetic mothers evolve, the triangles, the Hayat HaKodesh, the cherubim, where the archons evolve in the intermediate dimensions, for example, all that is the same dream. We are all of that. So, there is at the beginning a creation or an emanation from the formless light which one can call and name as well the source, as Shantinalaya. As soon as there is appearance of a form, there is the appearance of a notion of individuality. And as the illusion of time unfolds and space unfolds, the vibrational level, if you can call it that, crystallizes planes of life, planes of illusion, planes of dream within dream, and as I said, dream within dream, within dream, within dream, within dream. More and more dense, more and more apparently separated, more and more fragmented, more and more nightmarish literally, where the belief actually comes to be added to the illusion of the form. Silence. Eliza. A sister. How do you know that we want to contact you or that you want to contact us? Bidi. How do you know what? Eliza. How do you know that we want to contact you? Bidi. But I always said it. I had even given you, for the plane of the earth, a privileged time, in the country where you are at 11 o'clock. This contract is still valid. Remember that when we are unlimited, even if we appear within a form, we are multifocal, that is, we can respond, which for you is in the same time, the same hour, in multiple spaces, in the same way. We are not bound by the rules of this world. Christ can present himself to thousands of people at the same time. I introduced myself to hundreds of people at the same time. You can always call on me at 11 p.m., which is always a call to yourselves, since I am nothing other than yourselves. It was announced many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Eliza. A sister or a brother said, Omar explained to us that he had been with others in a ship. In a what? Eliza. In a ship. Bidi. Me? Alicia. No. Omar explained to us that he had been with others in a ship near the sun waiting for the collective event to arrive. But why didn't they directly return to the Parabrahman like Bidi? Bidi. Because they built, during their life, schools, teachings which bound them. What was bound on earth will be loosed on earth. What has been bound in heaven will be loosed in heaven. So they cannot definitely join the Parabrahman. The same is true of the genetic mothers. It is the same with all the active forces of the intergalactic confederation of free worlds. This concerns, of course, the angels of the Lord, the vegans but also all the so-called intergalactic civilizations, from the most exotic to the most common. You are responsible for what you create, that is, you are responsible for the illusions you have created. This responsibility must therefore be resolved. This had been explained at great length in the years 2010 through 2012. But please do not encumber yourselves today with all this spiritual nonsense. What are you still looking for? What good is it to you, besides masturbating your head? Tell me what's the point? Where are you coming from? Eliza. A question. Why are we alone when we live the truth? Bidi. But because there has never been anyone. This is the moment when you realize that there is only you. There is no one at the same time, but you are at the same time all the people, all the dreams, because we are in each other at all levels. Everything is nested, even the dimensions. Everything is interconnected from the densest level to the most ethereal level. This is the very principle of light intelligence. Silence. Brother. A question from a sister. Bidi. Excuse me, I wasn't listening to you. Brother. I had a question from a sister. Bidi. So let's go. We listen to it. Brother. She asks. Why don't the characters who recognized each other leave? Bidi. But because you can't change what's in the dream. How can you imagine that we can change one iota because one day we become free? Do we have to leave the theater stage? We can only be where we are, here and now. How do I repeat it to you? You cannot leave the dream. It's the dream that leaves you when you see it's a dream. If the person is there in this body, there is always a reason. Believing that when you are free, you can change the world, is heresy. We can't change anything. It's a film. How should I tell you again? It's been repeated thousands of times. We are where we are, and we cannot be anywhere other than where we are. Seeing the dream and seeing its falsity doesn't make you want to leave the dream, it just makes you want to be where you are, here and now, even more. There is no elsewhere. It is still a projection of the ID consciousness and of the mind. You cannot be anywhere but where you are. Even what you seem to choose is already written. See it for you. Don't forget that they cut my whistle after 2 hours. Eliza. We need a break, Bidi. Bidi. So, last questions before a deserved break, but you're not done with me. I will come back after the break. Brother. Question Bidi. The passage of Bidi in a human body. Bidi. How do I repeat it? You are in an immutable film immutable from alpha to omega, from the source to the infernal worlds. Everything was written out of time and space in what was called the initial instant, which is nothing but the final instant. Everything is perfect. Don't be fooled by appearances. It's like the illusion of free will that many spiritualists put forward. Oh yes, but I have free will. But you jerk, you have no freedom in free will. The only freedom is the freedom of thanksgiving. Understand and see that absolutely everything is conditioned, that absolutely everything has been written, that everything has been played out, that there is no time, there is no space. Not a comma, not a scene from the film can be changed. I think Abba told you about video games, but video games have several scenarios. But all the scenarios boil down to the start of the game and the end of the game. It's exactly the same. But that is not a belief. This is what you really experience when you are free. But you cannot understand it. You can't even accept it, and that's normal. You can only experience it, and as I said, experience is understanding. Nothing to do with an intellectual or vibrational understanding or whatever. You have to find yourself a refined Verdash. And when you find yourself, you have to say that it's always been there. As some say in their writings, there is only the present moment. Everything else is a lie. You are in the dream, but, at that moment, you are no longer taken in by the dream. You are available for now. There is no longer a researcher. There is no more research. There is no question about what you are anymore. There is no longer any doubt. There is that which is, that is all. Come on, I'll spare you the last few minutes, maybe. Eliza. We are announcing to the public that we are coming back in. Bidi. Let's say, 3/4 of an hour of your time. So what will be what time? From 6 o'clock, and we come back at 6:45. Eliza. We don't have time to go eat ice cream. Bidi. When? Eliza. Between meetings. Bidi. Oh no, or else you take the computer. But I believe that in the streets they will call the police. Eliza. If you scream, yes. Bidi. Or SOS psychiatry. There are chances. Eliza. So we'll eat the ice cream afterwards. Bidi. So we resume at? Eliza. 7 o'clock. 19 o'clock, let's go. Bidi. See you soon. Channeling by Jean-Luc Ayoun in French. Translated through Google Translate from original text at https://apotheose.live.